with Tobias. Tobias, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
You know, I saw your film, Extraordinary, Hijacking. Wanted to ask, what caused you to create such a movie? Did you know somebody? Is this intimate to you, or is it just a cause that you felt that needed to be focused on right now?
Well, the thing is, I'm from Denmark, and it's a small 5 million people country. It's a small country of islands, and it's built on a commercial fleet. I mean, every family has sailors in there, an uncle, a father, a brother. My father was a sailor before I was born. So in 2007 and 2008, when the first Danish-owned ships were hijacked by Somali pirates, it inflected the whole society there. Everybody went crazy about it. And I started to research. I've always looked at the arena of a ship with guys on it, called in the elements, and thought that's a perfect arena for a story. But every time I tried to approach it, it would turn out to some garbage horror thing with something coming from underneath and wanting to eat somebody, and it didn't make any sense for me to make that. So discovering this growing piracy business of the Indian Ocean, I decided to start to research about it and finding the stories of the hostages, of these CEOs, of the whole strange procedure that's going on. I mean, the thing is, a Danish-owned ship is sailing on the Panama flag, so the Danish government cannot do anything about it, and Panama's not going to do anything. They're just making some cheap money off, letting them sailing under the flag. So it's ending up on the table of these CEOs, and they're not educated to negotiate life and death. They're there to bring coffee around the world, or wood, or cars, or whatever. And suddenly they are in a situation where they're responsible for life and death of the crews of these ships. And that inspired me, and interested me a lot. So we would research, and definitely finding material for a film there. And from then on, I knew by meeting hostages, the victims of these stories, I knew that we needed to do it as realistic as possible. Try not to over-dramatize anything, try not to kill it with action, but just try to tell it basically from the point of view of these guys.
Because when you're watching the film, the two perspectives, the one from Peter, Soren's character as the CEO, and Mikkel, I guess he's the main hostage, the one who does most of the communicating with the character of Peter, and then Omar. I guess that's the three central characters there. But first about the Peter character, is you set it up, you see him negotiating, and he seems to approach it like a business. And even though the consultant told him you can't, it's nothing like that. Tell me a little bit about that, how you got into the character of Peter and how you developed him.
When I was a kid, my mom told me that rich people are evil because they stole their money from poor people. Around the age of 11, I understood that wasn't the full picture. So I always actually wanted to do a portray of a businessman that we could sympathize with and still let him be a hardcore businessman. In this case, we definitely wanted to know that he was a good negotiator so that we as an audience could believe that he could actually pull this off. This guy has built up this business himself. His employees is his employees. If something should happen to them, he wants to be responsible. He doesn't want guys. So in many ways, what could look like a stupid, selfish deal for me actually is a heroic thing. He tries to go in there and fight the fight for the guys. Unfortunately, the negotiator, the consultant, is right. If you get emotionally inflicted by this, you will lose your view. It will not turn out good. He needs to learn that, and I do believe that making that much money that he has in his past, having a big business like this, he needs to learn that he cannot control the world around him. He is not an island. He's part of something greater, and that's probably what he will take with him home after the whole thing.
Yeah, because you see him, change, develop.
The easiest part would be to make him a greedy, evil guy who didn't want to pay. But in research showed me that wasn't the case. These guys are insured. They can just pay. But if they do, they will risk the lives of all the sailors in the Indian Ocean, because if you pay more money, there will be more piracy. So you need to not do that. And that, of course, is a strange conflict to be in. You have the money, but you cannot pay.
Right. it makes perfect sense. You have to negotiate. So it's the next time it's about the next event, which unfortunately there always seems to be one. One more thing about Peter, I wanted to ask. You see him change, as the process goes by. In the beginning, you feel he has a sense of responsibility for his men. When I was watching, it felt like it was a responsibility versus a human attachment. It looks like it became a human attachment, as it went on. Do you think at first he was thinking of it as a business transaction? You negotiate, I'll come back with a counteroffer, and so on and so forth. But as it dragged on, he became attached, or do you think he was already attached in the beginning?
No, for me, he was not attached in the beginning. It was a business deal for him. He just wanted to buy these guys back, and he actually thought that I'm used to winning the negotiations I'm in, so I will do that again. And he would approach it like that. The thing is, he had never been on the phone with a guy so scared to die that you can feel it in his voice. And that, and the wife coming, suddenly being there with all the relatives in an auditorium, and understand that this is not just numbers, this is real living people, did a trick on him, and that would finally make him lose grip of the situation.
And you brought up Mikhail, the character Mikhail. You see them all suffering, but there comes a point where he basically cracks, and he's downstairs.
Mm-hmm.
He's quiet. Tell us a little bit about that. Did you meet hostages that happened to? Apparently, different hostages handle it differently. Because that was interesting about that character, that he came a moment where he basically cracked. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, first of all, he's a cook, and in the beginning I wanted to make him a captain, but all research told me that it is the cook that is in most contact with the Somalis because he can cook for them. So they will not disturb the captain. They will drag out the cook and wake him up 8 o'clock in the morning. And at the same time, a cook is, a captain is more like a soldier, or a guy working, a chief engineer is a hard-working man. There's something artistic and a little sensitive about being a cook. So we wanted to make him the soft man of the pack. He has a wife, he has a daughter. He probably soon want to stop sailing to get back to be with his family. And to take him, and then we just, as a method, as a rhythm, would humiliate him on every second page until he couldn't take it anymore. And I often thought of when is this breakdown going to happen? And we decided to do it the most unlikely place, when nothing actually happens anymore. At a point where it's not that dangerous anymore. He just needs to do his job as a cook. And they're not adding to the danger of the situation, but he's just had enough at the point. And then, of course, without telling the ending, what happens in the ending will change him forever. He's going to have a hard time coming back. But I wanted to make a family man, a man like me, who can cry watching films, and who love my kids, and I'm more into arts than fights in many ways, and try to portray him as that. What I do as a trick, I always give characters like them the name of a good friend of mine. So one of my best friends is called Mikkel Hartmann. And I have so many emotions towards him, so it was easier to connect with that writing him. Yeah?
Right. Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah, it gives you that. That's a great.
And then Pilou would, Pilou, the actor who plays Mikkel, he would gain 20 kilos for the part, and he decided to lose everything in Africa. So he would stop eating as soon as we got there, and he only had like 100 grams of chicken and a cucumber every day, and that was it for the whole period. So he would lose 18.5 kilos during the shooting, which of course made him very desperate and hungry. So he didn't need to act that.
Right.
It was already there.
That's great. Because the movie when you're watching it, it's powerful. You see the emotions. What would you like the audience to walk away with at the end of the movie? What was kind of your intention? When we walk away, we're like, wow, I need to know more. How can I get involved? I can't believe this happens. Because we know it happens. We read the news, but here it is, a story in the screen. What would you like us to walk away with at the end?
Well, definitely the feeling of connecting to this problem. When I saw it for the first times, it was just numbers. 1,200 hostages in the Indian Ocean, and they're being freed for $6 million. It's all numbers. I don't connect to that emotionally. So that is what fiction compared to documentaries can do. We can actually tell stories that are impossible to tell. We could never bring a documentary team in there to portray the situation in an honest way, but we could do it as a fiction. So I just needed, from the beginning, for me it was a local story, so I just wanted the Danish audience to be in the shoes of these guys for these 90-some minutes, to just feel that, to understand what we talked about when we're talking about this in the news. There was this romantic idea of the pirates being poor fishermen who had their waters emptied out. And in the beginning of the piracy, that was the truth, yes, but it has turned into $1 million gangster business.
Yeah.
And the victims are the sailors and the CEOs who hasn't done anything wrong. They probably haven't fished their waters. They're just there, caught in a very, very hard situation. So I just wanted to portray the situation as detailed as possible to get the audience to understand what's going on instead of just, talking about it in theory as in numbers, making it human. I do believe that we are obligated as storytellers to touch the audience we have, and the only way I could do that in this situation was to do very clear point of views from two of the victims of this story.
Yeah. I just want to ask a couple more questions. Because we have the three basic perspectives: Mikhail, the crew, Peter, the corporate, and then the way he deals with them, and then Omar. And because Omar is the connection with the pirates, but he seems to be detached. I'm just here doing a job. I'm just a negotiator, and he doesn't like being called a pirate.
Mm-hmm.
But is he? He says he's not. I can see why he's not, but he's part of them. Tell me a little bit about that. Did you meet someone like Omar?
I didn't meet, but I did read a lot of transcripted negotiations between pirates and companies, and I did watch a lot of interviews with some of these guys, and I couldn't really make it. Some of them definitely are part of it. They are doing 4 or 5 negotiations at the same time. They are investing their own money in new hijackings and are part of the big business. And some of them are just well-educated guys coming back to Somalia, and suddenly they will see their families being held on shore at gunpoint, and they will tell them, bring us $6 million for that ship or we will kill your family. So I couldn't really tell the truth. So what we decided to do was to only know as much as the sailor and the CEO would know. So I'm not sure about the truth about him.
Right.
I know that he's probably more attached than he wants to tell you, but at the same time he could be a victim of these situations as well. And in the beginning, in the draft, the part wasn't that big. I wasn't sure I could find the right actor for it. But then going through the streets of Copenhagen and together with my caster, we would find this guy, and he was the fattest Somali guy I ever saw. He didn't look like the rest of them, and he had a beautiful English because he grew up in an asylum center in Canada. So I would just say, can you please come to my office? You want to be part of this? And he came the day after, and he would strip down and threaten to kill me butt naked. And I believed that. Thought, okay, he's powerful enough. This guy, he can pull it off. He turned out so good, so I would, make his part of the film a lot bigger, and that saved this film from many problems because we actually are telling the story through him in many of the scenes. Great guy, Abdeen Asghar.
Yeah, fantastic. You did a great job. Just one last question. In making this type of film, in the future, will you be making something again with such a heavy topic, or is it it's draining right now, and maybe in a few years you'll do it again?
I don't feel smart enough to do comedy. I'm not old enough to see the irony of everything yet. So basically, yeah, definitely. I feel like I've done a film before this called R, a Danish prison film, and now Hijacking, and I definitely want to continue telling stories about people caught in violent situations that will change them forever. I believe that we are getting there in how to tell these stories. We can get a lot better than to do that, and I want to continue that with the rock band. I mean, it's the same guys I work with all the time, the same actors, the same crew. We want to develop this kind of language that we're doing in these films.
Tobias, thank you. Fantastic film, and I know you're going to receive great accolades. Thank you very much for taking the time with us.
Oh, thank you, man. You make me proud. Thank you.